Hello and welcome to Dementia Diaries. It's been a while, but we're back. My name is Janet Williams and I am your host for tonight. I want you to know that tonight is more than just a podcast episode. It's a safe space for caregivers, families, and anyone caring for others in silence, and anyone that's caring for those that have burdens. We want you to know that you are seen, valued, and you are not alone. So today I have a guest on my show tonight, and she will be coming up shortly. And her name is Priscilla Jean-Louis. So everyone, let's get ready to welcome Priscilla. Priscilla, thank you and welcome to Dementia Diaries. How are you?
I am doing great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. Thank you for you know, wanting to be on and wanting to share your story and be a part of this broadcast. I really appreciate it. So before we get started, what I want you to do, if you don't mind, is just tell us a little bit about yourself and what inspired you to, share your story publicly.
Okay. My name is Priscilla, as you said, Priscilla Jean-Louis, and I am originally from the metropolis of Lake Wells, Florida. I always say that it's a very small town down in Central Florida, and I currently reside in Tallahassee, Florida. I am the caregiver to my mother, Vera. I am also the mother to Destiny and Kaylin. Those are my two heartbeats, and I am just a caregiver. I've self-coined as well as others. I'm an inspirational caregiver. My whole goal and purpose in this particular season of life is to bring greater awareness to others, as well as to just inspire as many people as I can regarding caregiving. There's so many people who kind of run away from the responsibility. And so, my goal is to really help inspire as many people as I can, to help them to understand that although it may be a tough journey, it is something that you can do. I do believe that God gives us grace for every place that he allows us to be in. And so, if we're able to tap into that grace, and we'll realize that even in this particular space, there's purpose in this particular season. And so I'm just someone who loves God, who loves people, who loves my mom, and loves to share my journey.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I was, a caregiver as well, along with my siblings, caring for my mother, who passed in July 2022. And, you find so much, you can find joy, you can find love, you can find patience and everything in caregiving. And that's some of the things that I want to talk with you about tonight. But your story tonight is about Vera. So it's Vera's story. Tell us, who is Vera, and tell us something about her.
She is my mother. She will actually be 84 years old on Saturday. She is my everything. I often I will hashtag it with my girl, my world. My world, my girl, my favorite girl. And that's what I've coined her to be, just my favorite girl. She was a professional tailor. That was her profession prior to dementia. She could have been a comedian. I really believe that. She's probably one of the funniest people I've ever known. And she's just always been my inspiration. I've always been a mama's girl, always stayed right up under her. Literally everywhere she went, I was right there as a child anyway. Then as I got a little bit older, sometimes we kind of veer off from that. But, she's always been my right hand. And so dementia has definitely changed it, but it hasn't changed my love for my mom. And so she is my mother. She's my baby's granny. That's what they call her. And she's our world right now. She is actually the greatest part of me. And so everything that I know about God, everything that I know about certain things in life, I get it from her. And so that's exactly who she is. She's my world.
I think mothers are the best friends we could ever have.
Yeah.
So tell me, when did you realize that caregiving was going to be a part of your journey?
So she had surgery back. It will be 14 years.
Okay.
Well, actually, this month, the end of this month, May 30th,
Mhm.
makes 10 years that she had her surgery. Well, no, she'll be 84. So she had it at 70. So it'll be 14 years since she had her surgery. And honestly, at that time, I really didn't even think about it. I didn't. For me, caregiving just kind of, if I can put it this way, it kind of fell in my hands.
Mhm.
I was always at her house. I went to my mom's house every single day. There's something about being able to go and get food and all of that. And I went in the pots, got what I wanted, the whole nine. I was always at her house. My children were always with her. And when she was diagnosed, after we started noticing things, and then she was diagnosed, she was driving at the time. And so one of the things that had to happen was we had to stop her from driving because it had gotten to a point where my oldest daughter, because she was picking the girls up from school, and so my oldest daughter came home and told me one day, "Mommy, I'm scared to ride with Granny." And
Oh.
so when I started asking questions, she's like, "Well, we'll be sitting at the red light, and Granny she'll go." She's like, "When the light turns green, she'll stop, but then when it turns red, she'll go." And so,
Mhm.
of course, that concerned me. And so I started looking at that. And then, from there, it just kind of went from her going places that my brother happened to be following her one day and noticed that she was going somewhere that wasn't intended for her to go. He just followed behind her. And then we
Mhm.
had a family event right before Thanksgiving, and my cousins happened to be behind her. And she was driving on the wrong side of the road, driving erratically. So when they got out there to my sister's house where we were, told him about it. And so he ended up disconnecting the battery cables.
Hmm.
Well, we didn't have a discussion about it, right? Nobody, although all of us were there, we
Uh-huh.
have a discussion about what does this look like once she starts to, when she doesn't have a car anymore. Who's going to take the responsibility? And it's just kind of like everybody just felt like, okay, that's because they knew I was there at her house all the
Mm.
time, and she was comfortable with me being there all the time, and we did just about everything. But it just kind of fell in my lap because, from that day she got in my car, and she's been with me ever since. There was about a year that for an entire year after that, I would just
Mhm.
go over to her house every day. I made sure, I would go and take my daughter to school, go and check in, make sure she had breakfast, go to work,
Mhm.
leave on my lunch break, go back to her house, make sure she had lunch. And then it became a thing where I would just take her home with me in the evenings. And so the same cycle, and that happened for a year. On the weekend, she stayed the weekend with me. Holidays, she was there. And it just became a task to try to get her up in the mornings. And she
Mm.
would come every day and still, not know where the restroom was, or it got to a point where when it's time to get up to go to work and to drop my daughter off, she's like, "No, I'm not getting up." So it just became more difficult. And
Mhm.
so after about a year, that's when we made the decision to just move in with her because she was more familiar with her house. And
Right.
so, she's been with me ever since that battery cable came off that car.
I can imagine. Now tell me when you found out that she had dementia, Alzheimer's,
Correct.
what were the feelings? What did you feel? What were your emotions? How did you handle it?
I think in the beginning, I didn't really have any real emotion towards, and a lot of that was ignorance and knowing what the disease really was. And because of the fact that Alzheimer's runs so rampant in our family,
Okay.
we were around it, right? We were around it. When I say we, my family, we were around it all the time. And so both my grandparents, she had cousins and different ones that we were around. And we
Mhm.
just assumed that, okay, as you get older, this is just something that happens to you. And so, because we were so familiar with the changes, but not knowing exactly what the disease was, it didn't really affect me in that way. I think the thing that bothered me more than actually the diagnosis was the moment that she didn't remember who I was.
Mm.
That's when I had my hardest time,
Okay.
because, I think the diagnosis was just like, okay, especially in the beginning stages where I had some knowledge
Mhm.
of, things. And so she could still function. The long-term memory was still there. It was just the short-term memory initially.
Right.
It wasn't until we were sitting at a stop sign, leaving her house, sitting at a stop sign, when she looked at me and she said, "Now, who are you?"
Mm.
That's when it was like, "Oh, you don't know me?"
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
think that had more of an impact on me than the actual diagnosis.
Okay. And what would you say was one of the hardest moments that you've faced as a caregiver?
For me, I think it's just seeing the changes daily, especially it's been 10 years. I've been caring for her for 10 years now. And so going from the beginning stages to now, she's in the later stages. And
Mhm.
so being able to see her go from, fully functioning to now she's not bedridden, but
Okay.
she's in a space where she sleeps a lot longer. She's in bed quite a bit
Mhm.
most of the day. Those type changes where you're having to be the caregiver. And as I often tell people, it's one thing if you're just caring for somebody, but when you're caring for your mother,
Mhm.
and this is the person that, cared for you, your confidant, your person, and
Mhm.
you're having to constantly watch this disease just take them further and further down. That
Mhm.
can be very heart-wrenching. That can pull at you the most. And I think for me, that's the hardest thing is having to watch this day in and day out.
And I agree with that. So I live in Florida, and my mom was in Virginia, and I would come up. I don't know, it was maybe every 2 months or sometime like that, and have my time to help watch her, to give my siblings a break. Sometimes. And what got me was, when I left her to come home, she was in this particular condition. When I came back the next time, the condition was different. It had deteriorated. And then, the next time it deteriorated more. So for me, it was like I could fully see the difference, the changes. Not to say that my other siblings did not see that as well, but, they were with her there all the time.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
maybe it wasn't just so, open for them to see. But for me, it was like a shock sometimes. But I kept it in. I was that type of person that never really wanted to show expressions, emotions, or whatever. But I kept it in, and I prayed constantly. I prayed constantly. It's okay, Lord. Okay, this is where we are. This is where we are. Okay, I know what we got to do. Just help me get through this. I would constantly talk with him to help me get through the process. And that's where your spiritual life, your faith, your belief in God comes into play, because
Absolutely.
like you said, caregiving is very hard. It's if you've never done it before, it's very I don't even know if you can explain it.
I don't know
Especially
if
like,
there's a
yeah,
word. I
ex-
don't know if you'll ever have the right words to fully describe it.
exactly. Especially when you said it's your mother or it's another loved one. It's not just some other person that you just don't know. Because you want to do everything perfect, knowing you can't do everything perfect.
Right.
And when you have other siblings, they're ideas and suggestions may be different than yours. So you have to navigate through that type of stuff as well. But, caregiving, it can be done.
It can be. I'm
I
living
am
proof.
a true witness, and you're sitting here and you're doing it now. It can be done. Everyone will have their moments. I can't do this anymore. Why is this happening to me? But you can do it. That's my thing. I tell everyone, you can do it. You just got to get your mind right. Get your
Yeah.
mind right, get focused, and you can do it.
And I think too, the greatest part of it, you said it. It
Mhm.
is for me anyway. And I tell people this all the time. Um, it, it's my faith in
Mhm.
God and my relationship with Him that has allowed me to do what I do for these 10 years. And I promote that greatly because I don't discount anybody else's belief, whatever they believe. I'm just telling you what I believe, and I
Mhm.
do believe that it is God's strength and His power that enables me to do what I do. And I had to change as well my perspective, right? I think when people change, if you can change your perspective and understand, and I had to understand that better just even a few months ago, and understanding that, because one of the things that happens in caregiving, especially when you've been accustomed to doing certain things, your life was a certain way at one point, and then caregiving literally shifts and
Mhm.
changes all of that. And for me, ministry has always been major for me. And
Mhm.
so, I was one of those people who every service I'm there, all of that. And then all of that shifted. And so, what I've had to realize, because you also will start to kind of grieve your life as it was prior to caregiving.
Mhm.
Because when you find that you're not able to do things that you once were able to do, that can be difficult, right? If you don't
Mhm.
get a grasp of it real quick. But what I had to realize through studying a few weeks ago, what I realized is that even my caregiving, me being at home and doing right now, this is ministry for me. This is
Mhm.
the greatest form of ministry I can have at this particular time. And God had to remind me that me serving my mom in the capacity that I do, that
Mhm.
is a form of worship. And
Yep.
so when you understand that, when you have that relationship and you realize that you allowing God to serve through you, and that's what I refer to it more than anything else, is being able to serve her in this
Mhm.
particular season of her life. And when you understand that, and my prayer all the time is, God, serve through me,
Yep.
right? If you serve through me, then she'll be good. But just
Mhm.
understanding that what I'm doing right now and caring for my mom and serving her, it is a form of worship. And when you make that sacrifice to Him, and He's honored, when you do it from your heart, you're doing it, it is that sacrifice of praise, that sacrifice of worship that you're giving to Him.
Exactly. Exactly. And the thing about it, Priscilla, is once you understand that, once you have come to that understanding, I mean, things just, it's like they just open up. You're a
Yeah.
completely different caregiver. You're a completely different person. So it your faith is your strength. I remember one time, I don't know, I think my siblings, my sister, somebody left me at the house alone with my mother. We had a caregiver, or what do they call it, a home health aide, come in and stay as well. But for some reason, I don't know why this person wasn't there, but they weren't there. My sister was there and she left, and I was there with my mom alone for the first time. First time I was there with her alone. I did not have a clue what to do. So I broke down. I mean, I literally broke down. I mean, I broke down. I had my 15 minutes of breakdown. And then I again spoke to God and said, Lord, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I know you're going to let me do the right thing. You're going to use me to help her. And from that day forward, I never had an issue staying with her alone, because I had already figured out in my mind, in my spirit, okay, this is service. This is service to her. So, and in this, I am honoring God at the same time.
Mhm.
So, once I hit that 15 minutes, I didn't go back. So that is very powerful there, what you had stated. So, in all of this, have you ever felt caregiver guilt, exhausting, or anything, isolation, or anything of that nature?
Um, I don't know if I would ever say I've had the guilt, but
Mm-hmm.
definitely the isolation. I have stated to, those that are close to me that I speak with, I think caregiving is the loneliest place I've ever been in my life, right? I'm not alone, right?
Mm-hmm.
But because unlike yourself and others, I have siblings in the city, but I am the caregiver. I
Mm-hmm.
make all the decisions. They just don't. For lack of better, I'm not getting into all of that, but it has literally been myself and my youngest daughter,
Mm-hmm.
as far as being here in the caregiving space. However, I mean, I don't think there's been any guilt there when it comes to caring for my mom. Now, are there times when I do wish that I can do some other things more? Absolutely. I think the good thing about it is I've never really been my entire life. I've never been that just gotta go person. I've
Mm-hmm.
always been a homebody. And so like things like COVID, I pray to God we don't have to do that again at all. So let me put that disclaimer in there.
Mm-hmm.
However, COVID it didn't affect me as much as some because I like being home. I
Exactly.
like to go when I want to go, but there are times when I am sitting back saying, man, I have a whole car in my garage, and I can't go. You do have those moments where, like I said, when you're used to being active and you're used to being where you want to go anyway. Yeah, sometimes it can get, and I think for me, I get more disappointed. Well, I stopped. I used to get disappointed a lot when I have prepared. Now, if I don't have anything to do or I haven't planned to do anything, and somebody who was supposed to come decides, oh, they can't come, because what you find is there are times because people don't have the same obligation and responsibility you have. And so I've had caregivers and different ones who were scheduled to come, and then I get a phone call or a text right before it's time to do what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, I'm not coming. And so those moments sometimes, especially if it's something that I planned to do, I was looking forward to doing, and then that just kind of got shattered. Yeah. But I mean, yes, it can be a lonely place. It
Mm-hmm.
can be very lonely when it's just you and the walls. I put my mom in the bed. It's just me, God, and the walls. And I talk to
Mm-hmm.
him all day.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you want a human body to also talk to or whatever. My daughter, she just graduated from college. And so even being here in the city, she was actually on campus. And so she, because we've always been very close. And we sit down, watch a movie, play whatever it is we're doing. And so when she moved on campus, that was like, okay, I'm going to be here by myself. Even though she came, she comes home a few times a week, and just about every Sunday she's here having dinner, what have you. But she's getting ready. She's moving to New York. 2 weeks. I'm getting ready to move her to New York. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's a whole different bag of emotions right there. But no regret, just yes, it can be lonely. Yes, there's sometimes, especially too, and what I have to do is constantly keep myself in prayer, keep myself, because you have thoughts, especially when you do have siblings who should be helping out and they're not, and they go whenever they want to go, and they don't call to say, do you need, or they don't check in, they don't. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, well, goodness, you can go wherever you want to go. at least sometimes you can pick up the phone or stop by and say, do you want to go? You
Right.
know, and so those type moments, yeah, those can be hard. But I don't have any regret with it, because, and I'll do it again, maybe in some different ways, but I do it again simply because I do look at it. For me, I've always looked at it as my mom cared for me. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Caregiving, I often think of that scripture that references a man laying down his life for a friend.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the type of sacrifice when I look at it and I consider the sacrifice that Christ made. And is everything biblical and spirit? Yeah, for me it is, right? So not trying to be deep or what have you, but for me that's perspective for me, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
that level of sacrifice, and as I'm often say, I have two children now. And it's one thing when you're a child growing up and you see your parents doing some things, you don't understand the level of sacrifice a parent makes, not for real,
Mm-hmm.
until you have children. And
Mm-hmm.
when you have children, you know the sacrifices that you have had to make for your children. And so
Mm-hmm.
when I consider that, and then there's some things that I do know that my mom sacrificed and that my mom gave up. And I'm always asking myself, you know, what else? I know she had to. There were some places she wanted to go.
Mm-hmm.
There were some things that she wanted to do that she couldn't do it. And
Mm-hmm.
so now I'm in I have a book that I'm writing that's called Love in Reverse,
Okay.
because that's exactly what it is. It's my turn now. That's the subtitle.
Mm-hmm.
Love in Reverse is my turn now, because that same sacrifice that she made, now I find myself making that same sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm grateful that I do have those outside of immediate family who do, assist. And so it's not like I'm here and I can't go anywhere at
Right.
all. I do have that opportunity. We have some amazing resources here in Tallahassee that also affords me that opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it can be lonely. That's why I spend time doing what I do to
Mm-hmm.
help build that community, so that you do have people who know that, hey, I'm not here to tell anybody this is an easy road.
Yep.
I have days when, yes, I'm thankful unto God that I don't cry much.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, but I do have days where I have cried. There every now and again. Matter of fact, tonight I was sitting there before I started to prepare for this. My mom was sitting out, and so I looked at her just in the state that she's in now, and my heart got a little heavy,
Mm-hmm.
because I see how she is beginning to progress even more. And so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there are those moments that they can become heavy. Um, yeah, I have heavy, because what I often say to people is this: you're a caregiver, right? But life doesn't stop happening for you just because you care for whoever you're caring for. And so
Exactly.
you're dealing with, like, now I'm in a space in life myself right now where this empty nest thing is real, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, um, I'm having to go back and forth almost every day, and I'm telling myself, because New York is not, it's not close. That's the
Mm-hmm.
bottom line. It's not close, and I've had to remind myself almost daily, almost all day, God is everywhere. God
Mm-hmm.
is He is everywhere, and He can do more than I can do, whether it's Tallahassee or New York. And so I
Exactly.
have to remind myself, because that human side of me is like, I'm a mama first, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm a mama bear. I'm like, I like to make sure mine are good all the time. But
Exactly.
that's not my job, right? That
Mm-hmm.
only God can do that. And so these last couple of weeks have been emotional. And what I find is, as those days are getting closer, because when the job was first offered, that was back in December.
Mm-hmm.
And it just came so fast, 2 weeks from today, I will be flying her to New York to stay, to make a
Mhm.
home there for a little bit. And so emotionally, that's a lot, but I still have to care for my mom. I
Exactly.
can't, I have to keep myself in the space. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't get heavy. But I do my best to try and keep that side together, because I don't want anything that I'm feeling to flow over into my caring for her.
Right.
And so, those type things happen. It's just you have to find a way to be able to balance that out.
Mhm.
Sometimes people get frustrated because it can be. And so sleep and all of that stuff matters, because when you're deprived of sleep, you become more irritable. I don't know about anybody else, but I can be more irritable when I get sleepy. And sometimes, with their behaviors, if
Mhm.
you're in a certain space, you just don't want to come off the wrong way. And
Right.
so, and some of that is, I'm not saying that that's overnight,
Mhm.
right? I'm in a couple groups, and I think earlier today, I saw on one of the groups that I'm in where somebody just said, I lost it today. I
Mhm.
lost it. And it happens, right? You
Mhm.
can't beat yourself up if you have a bad day. You gotta forgive yourself, and do better the next time. Figure out what it is you need to do to be able to balance this thing out, if you're going to keep them at home with you. And so it's a lot of it, but I think ultimately, no regret. Loneliness, yeah, yeah, that happens, because the other side of that reality is this: people do stop coming, people do
Mhm.
stop calling,
Yep.
people are not really, they can say, I think my least favorite line of all times at this particular point in life is, let me know if you need something.
Oh.
I hate it. You
Mhm.
understand what I'm saying? I hate that line,
Mhm.
because I think that's everybody's go-to. If you need anything, let me know.
Mhm.
Well, I need something.
Need something. Yes.
Right. So there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, picking up the phone and saying, listen, I was just thinking about you. I'm gonna drop something off.
That's
So
it.
I have tried to make that something that I do, right?
Mhm.
It's not a, you know, do I say it period? Yeah. But what I've also tried to do is more than just say it. I'll order something and send it. I'm just thinking about you,
Yep.
because that's kind of what people need.
Now, on the other side of caregiving, like you said, there's loneliness. There's, we said it's a lot to do. You're dealing with their behaviors and so forth and so on. But there's also some joy on that in that caregiving part as well.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
you can have you can have some amazing moments with your loved one that you probably would have never had before. My mom, she had us in church, young age, so we're in church. So she loved church, and she was a singer, and I knew she loved to sing and all of that. So when I was there, I would go down to her room and I would ask her. I would say, "Mom, would you like for me to sing for you tonight before you go to bed?" And she'll say, "Yeah." She'll call me Lisa. My family calls me Lisa. She just said, "Yeah, Lisa." So I'll be singing, and I done got into the song. I mean, I am really in the song, and all of a sudden I hear, "You can stop singing now." I mean, it's like, oh, really? I can stop singing now?
They say the funniest
This
things.
is like, okay, right in the middle. So tell us about some of the joyous occasions that you've had with your mom.
I
You
think
can
just being able to sit down,
Mhm.
she doesn't, she talks, but it doesn't make a lot of sense at this
Mhm.
time. And so, but one of the things that she loves is conversation. And so,
Mhm.
and the thing about it is she hasn't recognized me for quite some time, some years. She
Mhm.
knows my name. She's gonna call my name all day, every day. And if she sees me anywhere in her vicinity, I don't care how quiet she is, before I get there, she's going to get up. She wants to be like right on my hip, literally.
Mhm.
And so for me, I sit down. I'll sit down next to her. Now, lately, I've had to sit on the couch because she's in a stage. It's really different, but she just scratches. Like, she has this thing where she scratches on everything. And if
Mhm.
you sit next to her, you become the next object. And so I'll sit across from her, but we sit down, and I have what I'll post little videos on Facebook sometimes, conversations with my favorite girl, and we just sit there. I have no idea what she's saying, but she'll start talking. I'm like, girl, for real? And she
Mhm.
just goes on and on. And so those moments are the moments that, in this particular space, that's what I hold on to. I tell people a lot, 10 years in, and just seeing it over time, you're going to, that's the thing about dementia,
Mhm.
regardless of the form, especially Alzheimer's, you are going to lose a lot of things. There's a lot that it robs, it takes away. But what I've learned is, as the Bible says, you have to strengthen what remains. And so, whatever it is that is still remaining, you have to
Mhm.
strengthen that part. For me, right now, that is the small conversations that we can still have. And so, I've learned how to strengthen that by continuing to do it. And that's what I encourage other people to do. You're gonna, that's just the reality of it. It is but God works a miracle and heals. As it continues to progress, it's going to steal more and more things. It steals time, it steals memories, right? My
Mhm.
girls love their granny, especially my oldest, because she was in the house with her. I mean, they were like thick as thieves, as they say, closest. And so there are accomplishments and things that happen for them that she won't have any knowledge of,
Mhm.
because that's just, dementia has taken that away. They love her the same, but that side of it. And so, yeah, you kind of, at times you'll grieve that side of it, because it's like, man, I posted, I think it was yesterday or today, there were some pictures that I had taken a few months ago. My uncle passed away, and our cousins came down, had taken pictures of her, and she had on my hat that my daughter had given me from Bloomberg. And so I posted yesterday, and I was saying, man, if she could only know the magnitude of the hat that she had on, I know that it would make her proud to know that her grandbaby is done with school and getting ready to go off and work for a major company like that. That would
Mhm.
make her so proud. But those type things, she doesn't have any knowledge of. And so we give her what she's due, regardless of whether or not she knows or not. She'll be 84 on Saturday. We
Mhm.
always celebrate. I forgot to order the cake today, so I'm gonna have to go online and do it when I get off here.
Mhm.
But we're gonna have cake, ice cream. She won't have a bit of knowledge of it. However, just because she doesn't remember doesn't mean that I can't remember who she
Mhm.
is and still celebrate her the same. And
Exactly.
so, she's usually not paying attention to much of what we do, but we still celebrate because that's still my mom and it's still her birthday.
Mhm.
And so it's those moments that you find that joy in it. There's times when, especially if she's been busy. Now lately she hasn't been as busy because she's in a different stage. But there
Mhm.
will be times where she would just be extra busy. She's given my people that come the business. But I can be walking her to her room, or she may be in the kitchen or walking around, and she may walk right up and she'll lay her head in my chest and say, I love you so much. Thank you. And
Mhm.
those moments make everything right. I don't care how I was feeling before then. It's
Mhm.
like, oh, everything's right in my world now.
Exactly. Exactly. So, if you have one thing to tell caregivers, one recommendation, what is that?
I would tell them, don't be hard on yourself,
Mhm.
and as we stated before, um, make prayer a priority.
Yes.
Prayer, reading, because that is where your strength comes from. I totally believe that in our weaknesses, that's when God's strength is perfected. And
Yes.
so, that side of it, and truly understand that God's grace is sufficient enough. I have a t-shirt line as well, and one of the t-shirts says, I was graced for this, because I really believe that his grace, and I have that scripture at the bottom. He said in his word that his grace is sufficient enough, meaning, and I said it in the beginning, there's not one place in your life, spiritually, wherever you are, God has given you a grace for that particular place, meaning he's already prepared that place for you. He's already prepared your mind, your heart, everything that you need is right there in that space too. You just have to, as I said before, tap into that. What does that mean? You have to recognize that he's given you grace for that. And so his grace, when he extends, there's a special endowment of grace that he gives us in situations in order to help us to walk through them. People ask me all the time, how do you do it? Because at one point, I didn't just have my mom, I had my mom and my grandmother, and both of them had Alzheimer's, and that was during COVID. And so imagine me, with us not knowing much about COVID at the time. I'm going to the grocery store. I'm doing everything they say do. I'm buying grocery, coming home, wiping down, stripping in the garage, the whole nine. And guess what? I still ended up with COVID. And that was my greatest fear, because I'm like, oh my, because, they were saying older people get it. So I'm like, oh my gosh, but even in that, because at the time, my grandmother was 98 when she passed away. And so at that point, she was like 95, and I have a large room. And so she was actually sleeping in my room. I had my bed on one side, her bed on the other side. And of all nights, for her to get up constantly, it was the night when I was coughing, and I didn't know what was going on. And so when I tested the day after and found out it was COVID, I was like, oh my God, because you think, oh my gosh, I'm going to kill her. You just, and so but by the grace of God, nobody else in my house, just me. And even with that, I had, I was blessed that I had someone who was able to come to the house and test both of them. And so things just kind of fall into play. And that's when you understand that God doesn't just he doesn't leave us out there, even in caregiving. He doesn't leave us out there alone. He's right there. And so, even in that space, if you're struggling, if you're having a hard time, my advice and my encouragement to anybody in that space is talk to them. And it's just that simple. A prayer can be something as simple as saying, God, help me.
That's it.
And he will do just that, because he's not far away from us. He's right there with us. And in our moments, when we get to that place where we feel like I can't, I would even dare to say that's a good place to be, because when we can't, he can. Again, that's when his strength is perfected in us, and we don't have to do it. We all know about, or most of us, you may or may not, but that poem, The Footprints. There are those moments when we're walking together, but then when we get to a place where we can't anymore, he picks us up and he carries us through, and he does that. I'm a witness. I'm 10 years in, and I am a witness that he has carried me through. He's still carrying me through. And, we're making it. I don't have many down days. That's the reality. Doesn't mean that it doesn't, because I'm human, right? Doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt to watch it and to see it. But I've never been someone who's just, oh, well, that's just not me. We're going to take this and we're going to flip it, and we're going to see how can we help strengthen and encourage and empower other people who may find themselves in the same space. And so that's kind of, he told me back in 2017 to make ministry out of the moments. And from
Mm-hmm.
that time, that was back in September 4th, matter of fact, 2017, is when he spoke to me and said, make ministry out of moments. And that's what I've endeavored to do ever
Mm-hmm.
since then. And so that is my encouragement to other people. Lean into him and don't
Mm-hmm.
feel like, God, I'm in this all alone. You may not have a human per se, but I promise you, God is right there.
Right there. Yep. And we got to remember, God is our refuge and our strength, and
Yeah.
He is a present.
Very
Present.
present. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. So He is there with you always. And before we get ready to go, I must get you to talk about, because you've been doing some things. You have your own podcast. You're writing a book. You've already had a book published, and you have an album. So let's tell us about that before we go.
Absolutely. So the book it's entitled Hey Caregiver. It's a devotional and prayer journal. And the whole purpose of this, I do a lot of, and it says, a strengthen, empower, inspire caregivers. My tagline is keep going, keep pushing, keep loving, and keep caring.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it came about because I did happen to see someone in a group once who was just, they were at their wits end and saying, I'm done with this, I'm quitting this, I don't want to do this anymore. And it
Mm-hmm.
just dropped in my spirit to do it. I do a lot of journaling. I tell people that writing is probably one of the best things you can do.
Yes.
And I encourage that because sometimes the stuff that's up here, if
Mm-hmm.
we don't write it out, if we don't get it out of here, it's going to
Mm-hmm.
settle right here. And once
Mm-hmm.
it settles in your heart, you become angry, you become frustrated, you become irritated. A whole lot can happen. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
important that you take it from your head, I don't care if you burn it up, whatever, but get it out your
Mm-hmm.
head so it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
grow in your heart. And
Mm-hmm.
so, and then prayer has just that's been my go-to, my prayer, my worship. And so I decided to put both of those in one. So there's a devotional in here. And what I did with it is I pulled together those characters in the Bible because, believe it or not, there are those in the Bible who too were caregivers. And so I pulled those out. And then the ultimate caregiver, who is God himself, he cares for us. So I put
Mm-hmm.
all of that in there. And there's the journal side, the devotional side, and there's a space, I have prompts, questions that just kind of pull thought. And
Mm-hmm.
then, a space for you to just write. I write a lot. And so I added a couple pages and then I just added some in the back. And so that is just to be able to empower and inspire, just as it says, strengthen, empower, inspire caregivers to keep going, because that's what we need. Get it out of here. I don't care. You don't have to do the journal, whatever you do, just write it down.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's the same, same with the album. And I put that disclaimer, and it's out there as well. And so it's not me singing, it's my lyrics. Okay. And I don't mind being honest about that at all.
Mm-hmm.
Right. God has given us some amazing tools with AI. And so I did use AI music, but I took all of my lyrics and developed an album specifically for caregivers, because sometimes you need that extra, and it's full of God as well,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to just strengthen. You having a hard day, put that song on. One of the songs that I love, I love them all, but there's one in particular that's titled Life Interrupted, where
Oh.
it does talk about the fact that, caregiver fell on me, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
my life was going over here, I was doing my thing, and then it got interrupted, but it was a good interruption, right? Good. Now I can see it as
Mm-hmm.
good because you make it good, right? That's just, all things will work together.
Yeah.
And we don't always know what all encompasses
Mm-hmm.
sometimes. He didn't tell us what all encompasses. I think if he told us, a lot of us would run away from it. But all things will work together. And so that's good, bad, indifferent. But what I do know, and that's one of my favorite scriptures, that all things will work together for my good, because
Mm-hmm.
I love him and I am
Yeah.
called according to his purpose. And so that's what the book, and it's simply to be able to strengthen other caregivers. My thing is, if one person's life is impacted, If one person's life is changed, then the mission is accomplished. God tells me what to do, and I
Mm-hmm.
just try my best to do what He's told me to do, and then that's all. I'm not
Yeah.
responsible for the outcome. He is. I did the part that He told me to do. Um, None of it is about money. None of it. I mean, it's just not. I'm not in any of it to make money. My
Mm-hmm.
thing is to impact a life and to help people to know and
Exactly.
understand that you're not in this alone. Even
Mm-hmm.
though you may feel like it, you're not in it alone. I don't care who it is. I can meet you for the first time, and my thing is, I'm here, right? I've been
Yeah.
there. I've been there. I've been in a space of just starting out, not knowing what this is about. I get calls sometimes from people that say, "Hey, let me know what is this really all about? I have my mom was just diagnosed. What do I have to look forward to?"
Mm-hmm.
And I'm honest. I'm open and honest, and especially in the beginning, hey, look at it like a marriage, honey, the honeymoon period. If you don't continue to nurture that marriage and you don't continue to give it that honeymoon period, when it's over, it might get a little hard. And so
Mm-hmm.
look at the beginning, enjoy the beginning, because as it continues to progress, it's a lot different. I see Tiffany, she's on here. I'm not sure if she's still on here, but she'll be on my podcast tomorrow. We're talking about the weight she carries. And there's
Mm.
a whole lot that's up in there, right? So there's a
Right.
lot that comes along with it. And I'm honest enough to tell people exactly what that looks like, but I'm also honest enough to say, hey, you can do this, right?
Mm-hmm.
My goal is to really have more people. I hate to say back in the day because I don't want to date myself too much. I'm not that old. I'm only 51. I don't mind telling my age. Some people like, no, I don't mind. I'm 51. But back when I was younger, growing up, people took care of their family members.
Yes. Yeah.
They took care. They weren't so quick
Mm-hmm.
to put them in a home and walk
Mm-hmm.
away.
Mm-hmm.
And because of my profession, um, uh, outside of all of this, the one that pays my 8 to 5,
Mm-hmm.
I go in and out of these facilities and different things, and I see, people who, I mean, they just get dropped off, and nobody really thinks
Understand it?
about
Mm-hmm.
them. And I think that just our society as a whole, though, we've become a society of selfish people. We really only care about ourselves, and so for me, I'm like, if I can inspire and encourage and deeply encourage somebody to say, and it doesn't mean, let me say this, not everybody can care for
Right.
the loved one in their home. Not
Mm-hmm.
everybody, there's different types of situations. But even if they're not in your home, doesn't mean that you can't care.
Exactly.
Take yourself, you're a whole few states away, but you
Mm-hmm.
made it your point to go and to be there. And sometimes you can't go, but there's still things that you can do. Ultimately, it's about you being just a little less selfish
Yes.
and being selfless to say, what can I do? It may take
Mm-hmm.
you away from something that you may want to do, but it is our responsibility. And I'm always going to believe that. It's a scripture
Mm-hmm.
in the Bible. It's in First Timothy, the 3rd chapter, I believe it is. But we do have a responsibility
Yeah.
to take care of those who once took care of us. It talked
Mm-hmm.
about the widows, but it goes on to say, your family, you take care of your parents. They took care.
Mm-hmm.
That's an obligation that
Mm-hmm.
we have. And so, as opposed to running away from it, ultimately you do the part that you can do. You
Yeah.
you offer the part that you can offer. And that's my goal, is to be able to have somebody to say, you know what, I'm gonna rethink that thing, and I really do want to give whatever I can give. Doesn't mean you
Mm-hmm.
have to bring them in your home, but whatever you do, go see them. If you haven't
Exactly.
seen your parent or your loved one, go see them.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me, it makes their day.
It does. It really does. It
Yeah.
really does. My mom at one
People that run
time.
up to me, just hug me at the nursing home, and they just happy that somebody stopped by.
Mhm. So now my mom at one time, she was in a nursing home, and my siblings, especially my sisters, they were there every day, every morning, making
And that's
sure
my
the whole
that's my thing
tower.
to everybody. Go. I don't
Mhm.
care if they're a top notch nursing home, nursing facility. Go.
Go.
Go see them.
Exactly. You
Take it
want to
from
know what's
somebody
going
who
on.
knows. Go.
Mhm.
That's all I can say about that because but go.
Yep. So, Priscilla, thank you so much for sharing your time, your story, with us tonight. I really appreciate it. It has been a pleasure to meet you and to know that there is another sister in Christ that is doing the same thing that I'm doing and want to spread, care, love, teach, educate, other caregivers so they'll be able to make it through this journey as well. And to the caregivers, what I want to say is, let us not be weary in well doing, because in due season you shall reap if you faint not. So keep going, keep trusting God. If you don't have a prayer life with Him, get one because He will be there when no one else is there. So, again, Priscilla, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for everyone that is watching tonight. I appreciate it. And we will be back in June for another podcast. And I will see you then. Thank
Thank you
you
for
all.
having
Have a
me.
good night.